Have you ever thought about how an arrogant, spoiled bully could transform into someone entirely different? What if the character you once despised was actually one of the most complex and tragic figures in the entire story? In today's video, you will find out how Draco Malfoy, the infamous Slytherin, changed in ways no one expected. At first glance, Draco Malfoy is nothing more than a snobbish, cruel, and entitled boy. Throughout most of the series, he seems like nothing but a nuisance, petty, jealous, and weak. Tom Felton brought him to life so well that it was easy to hate him. But beneath the surface, Draco was never just a typical antagonist. His journey was long, painful, and filled with moments of doubt, fear, and forced choices. He had to question everything he was taught, break free from generations of Malfoy legacy, and ultimately become his own person. Unlike Harry, who was shaped by love and friendship, Draco changed despite everything and everyone around him. That's what makes his transformation so fascinating. Today, we'll trace Draco's path from a privileged heir to a reluctant Death Eater, and, finally, to a man who left his past behind. Draco was born into one of the wealthiest and most powerful pure-blood families, the Malfoys. His mother, Narcissa, came from the esteemed Black family, further cementing his noble status. From the moment he could understand words, he was told he was special. He was the only child, the heir to the family's name and fortune. It was both a privilege and an immense pressure. He had to live up to the expectations of his ambitious and proud father, Lucius Malfoy. Lucius was everything to Draco, a role model, a figure of strength, and the person who shaped his beliefs. Prejudice, arrogance, disdain for Muggleborns, all of it was absorbed from his father. Even before Hogwarts, Draco was well versed in the politics of the wizarding world. He knew about Voldemort, his father's ties to the Dark Lord, and the legend of the boy who lived. From an early age, Draco surrounded himself with the children of Death Eaters, preparing to carry on his family's legacy. But he had no idea just how much his world would shatter in the years to come. As expected, Draco was sorted into Slytherin, like generations of Malfoys before him. He was intelligent, disciplined, and had no trouble with academics. But his biggest weakness was his pride, and Harry Potter became the source of his deepest resentment. At first, Draco tried to befriend Harry, hoping to pull him into the right crowd. Lucius had expected Potter to become a powerful dark wizard, possibly even Voldemort's successor. But Draco quickly realized his father was wrong. Harry wasn't interested in pure-blood superiority or Slytherin ideals, and that rejection stung. From that moment, Draco's hatred for Harry burned strong. He envied everything about him, his fame, his talent, and the way people adored him. While Draco was raised to believe he was superior, he was constantly overshadowed by Harry. That bitterness grew as the years passed. Deep down, Draco knew he wasn't like Harry, he wasn't brave, he wasn't a hero. He could torment weaker students, but when faced with true danger, he was a coward. He hated that about himself, and nothing exposed his fears more than his duels with Harry. Each time, he lost. Meanwhile, Lucius Malfoy was working behind the scenes to gain more power. He orchestrated events to remove Dumbledore, reopened the Chamber of Secrets, and later rejoined Voldemort when the Dark Lord returned. Draco idolized his father and felt pride in his family's influence until everything went horribly wrong. Lucius Malfoy's downfall was swift and brutal. His attempt to capture Harry ended in disaster, and he was sent to Azkaban. Draco, once the proud heir of an untouchable family, was suddenly the son of a disgraced criminal. The Malfoy name was tarnished. Voldemort saw an opportunity to punish Lucius and tighten his grip on the Malfoys. He gave Draco an impossible task: kill Albus Dumbledore. It was a death sentence, a mission designed for him to fail. But Draco had no choice. Desperate to prove himself, he tried everything: poisoning, cursed objects, and finally a direct ambush. But when the moment came, standing face to face with Dumbledore, wand shaking in his hands, Draco realized something terrifying. He wasn't a killer. He couldn't do it. Instead, it was Snape who cast the fatal spell. Draco lived, but his fate was sealed. He was now a Death Eater, in name only, caught in a nightmare he couldn't escape. Voldemort had no real use for the Malfoys. Their mansion became his headquarters, their status reduced to servants and pawns. Draco saw firsthand the horror of the Dark Lord's rule. The pride and arrogance he once flaunted disappeared. His first true act of defiance came when Harry, Ron, and Hermione were captured and brought to Malfoy Manor. Draco had the chance to expose Harry to Voldemort. Instead, he hesitated. He lied. He let them go. By the time the Battle of Hogwarts began, Draco was a broken shell of the boy he once was. He wasn't fighting for Voldemort. He wasn't fighting against him either. He was lost, trapped between fear and guilt. In the end, it was Harry who saved Draco's life. Twice. That moment shattered everything Draco had been raised to believe. The war was over. Voldemort was dead. And Draco had to decide what kind of man he wanted to be. Draco Malfoy was given something few Death Eaters ever got: a second chance. The Malfoys had abandoned Voldemort at the last moment, and because of that, they were spared from Azkaban. For the first time, Draco saw the truth. His father's beliefs had led their family to ruin. He no longer hated Harry. There was no point. The war had destroyed too much already. He married Astoria Greengrass, a woman who, like him, had grown disillusioned with pure-blood supremacy. They raised their son, Scorpius, to be different from past generations of Malfoys, kinder, more open, and free from the weight of old prejudices. Draco never became a hero. He never sought redemption. But he did something just as powerful. He changed. And that is why, out of all the characters in Harry Potter, his journey remains one of the most remarkable. Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter were never meant to be friends. Their first meeting set the tone for years of rivalry. Draco, the arrogant heir of an old wizarding family, extended his hand to Harry. "You'll soon find out that some wizarding families are better than others, Potter. You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort." But Harry rejected him without hesitation. That moment sealed their fates. Draco saw an enemy. Harry saw everything he hated about the world that had shunned him. At Hogwarts, their rivalry burned brighter each year. Draco envied Harry's fame. Harry despised Draco's cruelty. They clashed on the Quidditch field, in classrooms, and in hallways. "Scared, Potter?" Draco sneered before their duel in the Chamber of Secrets. But Harry wasn't scared. He was angry. He knew Draco thrived on power and status. He knew Draco was a coward when faced with real danger. Yet there were moments when their paths could have taken a different turn. When Draco failed to recognize Harry at Malfoy Manor, he hesitated. His pale face, once so confident, was full of uncertainty. "I can't be sure," he muttered. He had every reason to expose Harry, but he didn't. Was it fear? Was it guilt? Or was it something deeper, an unspoken understanding that they were no longer just rivals in a schoolyard fight? The war changed Draco. He saw his father's downfall. He saw Voldemort humiliate his family. He was no longer the proud Malfoy heir, just a boy caught in a nightmare. When the Death Eaters took over Hogwarts, he wasn't hunting Potter anymore. He was surviving. And yet, when the castle burned and the battle raged, he made one last attempt to do what was expected of him. He searched for Harry in the Room of Requirement, not to kill him, but to bring him to Voldemort. But even then, he failed. "That's my wand you're holding, Potter," Draco later said. But Harry didn't keep it. He returned it, a quiet gesture of respect. After the war, their lives drifted apart. Draco wasn't sent to Azkaban. His family's cowardice saved them, but he was no longer welcome among the elite of the wizarding world. The Malfoy name was tainted. He lived in the shadows of his past, while Harry became a hero, an aura, a man with purpose. They saw each other at the train station 19 years later. Their eyes met, a nod, no words, a silent truce, but nothing more. Could they have been friends? Perhaps if Draco had made different choices earlier. If he had extended his hand in true friendship instead of arrogance. If he had seen Harry as more than just a rival. But their history was built on hatred, on years of conflict that couldn't simply be erased. Even J.K. Rowling confirmed it. There was a real curiosity between them, a what-if. But too much had happened. Draco was too proud to ask for forgiveness. Harry had no reason to give it. They weren't enemies anymore. But they would never be friends. Their children had a different story. Scorpius Malfoy and Albus Potter formed a friendship that neither of their fathers could have imagined. They broke the cycle of rivalry. They proved that the past didn't have to define the future. But Draco and Harry, they had already lost their chance. Too much had been said, too many lines had been crossed. In another world, in another life, they might have stood side by side, but in this one they remained what they had always been, two boys who could never truly understand each other.